This is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Welcome to Dig on America, where we speak truth to power. Every week, we give you the dig on how American history, policies, and media created the social and political issues we face today. DOA is independent media supported by listeners, but they'll tell you we're just fake news, deep state propaganda, funded by George Soros, the Clinton Foundation, BLM Marxists, and...
I will go, who do I want to go with this week? I'll go with Yoda.
That's Master Yoda to
Master
you.
Yoda. Master Yoda. Not the little Yoda. Big Yoda. Not Grogu. Yoda.
How mad would everybody have been if he said his name was Yoda? Like when Osaka like read his mind, like did like that telepathic shit, where he's like, "Oh, his name is Yoda."
Yoda, I am.
The fucking conspiracy theories would have been out of control.
Like no relation. Like it's just a coincidence.
Like it's Yoda. He's reincarnated. So that means that in the Force, if you they would go insane.
You ever notice how people in Star Wars never have the same first name?
There's not like two Lukes.
Yeah, they don't repeat. Like, how is Luke Skywalker the only Luke in the neighborhood?
We really only know like the really famous characters in Star Wars, right? Like you don't know that like some worker in Dagobah what his name is, and another.
Yeah, there's stormtroopers that have the same name. Guaranteed. There's like 47 John Smiths.
We need to know the names of more stormtroopers. Mikey, who's sponsoring the show today?
Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning. All right, perfect. All right, and Big Haas appears to have left the show for a moment. I'm sure he's grabbing something pertaining to his cigar. So real quick, we will, and for those of you listening on the audio version, today we are joined by Juan Paredes. I hope I said it again better this time. Paredes.
Yeah, that was the best one right there. That was the best one in the last one.
That I did it better the second time.
Yeah,
I do this every time we have guests on whose name is not like Jones. I always forget to ask beforehand, like the phonetic pronunciation of their name, and I don't think about it again the rest of the show. So forgive my white man ignorance.
Yeah. No
but Juan Paredes, we'll use his English name. Joe Paredes is here with us today. But Juan is running for Congress in the 26th district in the Florida 2022 midterms. So if you'd like to hear more about his campaign, and you're listening on like Spotify or something like that, iTunes, you can go one episode down and hear about Juan's campaign. So, but for this show, we're going to talk a little bit about fascism. So, as we all know, there has been a bunch of shit going on in Ukraine. We talked about this a little bit towards the tail end of the last episode, which we recorded about 75 seconds ago, or concluded recording. And today we're going to talk a little bit about fascism. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about fascism was because it's super ambiguous. As far as like, if you're just a person who, hears the word fascist thrown around, maybe you heard about it in school, and, you decide, well, I'm going to Google it. And then you go and you get the Oxford definition and the Webster's definition. And then maybe you hear a definition from somewhere else, and they don't always line up. And I think that, the thesis of this is going to be that there is some leeway here, right? I know Irish Swede was on the show last week, and he gave us what his definition of it was. I've talked to a few people on Twitter that they have different definitions. I'm sure Juan and Mikey will have definitions as well that they kind of throw on this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go. I did a dig this week, and in this particular dig, I went really to three sources. Well, four if you count the Oxford Dictionary. I went to get an opposing thought. I went to PragerU, and where Dinesh D'souza.
Dude.
I also went to a professor from Harvard by the name of Jason Stanley, who's probably one of the most foremost names on studying about fascism. And then I went to Mr. Beat, who is a YouTuber who I really like. I don't know if you guys have seen the Mr. Beat show, but he's basically like a high school teacher, and he does some pretty great YouTube videos just on history and politics and electoral issues and stuff like that. And definitely check out Mr. Beat's channel. It's BEAT if you don't know who that is. So those were the three that I chose. So with that, I just clicked on my email by accident. I didn't want to do that. I want to click on Word, which looks exactly like Outlook. So now my eighth grade social studies teacher,
Mr. Humble,
taught me things that turns out, after doing my own research, wasn't exactly the whole story. And this week we will dive into what is fascism. So before I get into this, if you're in the chat, do us a favor and add to the conversation. Type into the chat on YouTube or on Twitch a sentence or so of what you like, how you define the word fascism, and we will read those on air. So fascism comes from the word fascio, Fascio, which means group, and literally is translated as a bundle of sticks or a group of sticks, with the idea that a group of sticks bound together is stronger than a single. According to Live Science, the website, fascism is a complex and mutable political ideology, which came to prominence in the 1920s and 1930s in Europe. The most notorious examples of fascist governments have been Benito Mussolini's National Fascist Party in Italy from 1922 to 1943, and Adolf Hitler's National Socialist German Workers' Party, or AKA the Nazi Party, from 1933 to 1945. There are many definitions of fascism. Some people describe it as a set of political actions, a political philosophy, or a mass movement. Most definitions agree that fascism is authoritarian and promotes nationalism at all costs, but its basic characteristics are a matter of debate. Quote, fascism is based on an ethnic division between us and them, an extreme ethno-nationalism. It's based on nostalgia for a mythic past, typically in which members of the chosen ethnic group had an empire, and it represents the present loss. It represents the present as a loss of that great empire. That natural standpoint in which members of this ethnic group dominated their environment militarily, politically, and culturally. And this is according to the aforementioned Jason Stanley, a professor of philosophy at Yale University. Fascism is most commonly associated with the Italian and German regimes that came to power after World War I, though other countries have also been ruled by fascist regimes. Adolf Hitler in Germany, Benito Mussolini in Italy, Francisco Franco in Spain, and Juan Perón in Argentina were the most well-known fascist leaders of the 20th century. Certain aspects of, and by the way, Juan, if you want to jump in at any point in time, just yell out pause and I'll stop and you can comment on anything that you want to talk about as far as this goes. So certain aspects of fascist rhetoric and political organization have shifted in the decades that follow World War II. And fascism has further evolved in the political landscape of the 21st century, as Madeleine Albright, former United States Secretary of State, explained in her book, Fascism, a Warning, in 2019. However, fascist ideologies and goals espoused by the likes of Hitler and Mussolini are still present in populist organizations today and continue to shape fascist movements in countries around the world, particularly where their leaders are someone who claims to speak for a whole nation or group and is utterly unconcerned with the rights of others and is willing to use violence or whatever other means are necessary to achieve the goals he or she might have, Albright wrote. Stanley goes on to say that all fascism is a mythic past, is a glorification of a mythic past. that focuses on the greatness and strength of the military, and that has an enemy. While propaganda is not an exclusively right-wing thing, nor is authoritarianism or dictatorship, fascism focuses on a minority group or other malicious threat that is fundamentally trying to destroy the nation. Stanley claims that there are 10 characteristics necessary for one to be a fascist. Hitler said, "Science is only useful insofar as it strengthens the nation. Expertise and reality are a challenge to the leader unless it is useful to the leader. Teaching alternate history," where we heard that before, "is always a threat." The 10 components laid out by Jason Stanley are the 10 as follows. 1, and he claims that if it doesn't have all 10 of these, or if at least 9 of them, it's probably not specifically fascism. Number 1, a mythic past. Number 2, use of propaganda. Number 3, anti-intellectualism or anti-science. Number 4, unreality. Number 5, hierarchy. Number 6, victimhood. Number 7, law and order. Number 8, sexual anxiety. Number 9, Sodom and Gomorrah, and I'll define that in a minute. And number 10, work shall set you free, or Arbeit macht free, as was written over the gates of Auschwitz. Stanley also claims that members of a minority group who accept their roles, this is an interesting point.
Candace Owens, shoot.
Yes, that's exactly correct. He writes that members of a minority group who accept their roles are viewed as law-abiding, and the majority is law-abiding by definition. They claim that gays and others with different lifestyles are indeed not just living their own life, but they are coming for you to change yours. This is effective in turning people who by nature are not at all fascist into raging fascists. They also claim that only the strong leader can save you. Now, this again,
only I can fix healthcare.
Yes, and again, not unique to fascism, this by itself, because Biden told us only he can beat Trump. But there is also
work.
Yeah, but there is also a city versus rural dynamic, which is what they mean when they're talking about, which is what Stanley means when he's talking about Sodom and Gomorrah. So again, cities are this place where there's decadence and sin, and the rural, that's like, the all good, common, hardworking folk.
And man shootings and stealing and stuff in them cities.
Don't go to the city, young man.
The big, guess I have to take you back to the country.
Man, you can only meet a woman on farmersonly.com.
That's because they hold aspirins between their knees. Meanwhile, I'm watching Yellowstone, and there's all kind of banging going on in that show. Just saying.
Well, they don't get to have a family with 48 fucking children working on a farm by keeping their knees together.
Man, I'm just saying, if I was single after watching Yellowstone, I'd be in Texas trying to find a barrel racer. That's all.
When you don't have like all the distractions of a city, I guess there's really not much else for you to do.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Go out to eat,
make some babies, and rustle some steer. So everybody on this show has a favorite football team, a college football team, and all of us root for good old PU, Prager University. So this great institution, PragerU, through their spokesman Dinesh D'Souza, says fascism is indeed
our country's greatest intellectual.
Absolutely, and you'll see why. Dinesh D'Souza argues that fascism is indeed not at all right wing. He says there is no original philosopher that is usually talked about in schools because that inventor was erased from history. D'Souza magically then unerases him and identifies him as Giovanni Gentile. He claims that Gentile. What's that?
What is it, Gentile or Gentile?
It's Dutch. We'll never know.
Whatever Gentile, he'll argue with you.
I do not argue when it comes to that's a very disingenuous statement, because I tell you all the time that I always mispronounce stuff, but it's written as Gentile with a little thing over the E. So I believe that's Gentile. But
was
it could
it
be
a this
gentile.
kind of thing or a dot?
It's straight. So he claims, he being D'Souza, claims that Gentile shunned a liberal democracy, which has the focus on liberty and personal rights as being selfish, and proposes the idea of true democracy, where individuals willing to subordinate themselves to the state and be, quote, all in this together. We're all in this together, and it's High School Musical. We're on the Disney Channel. He references Mario Cuomo at the 1984 Democratic Convention, who said America is an extended family as evidence for that. Or that doesn't really make any sense. But anyway, Prager states that instead of mobilizing people on the basis of class, like Marx, that fascists mobilize people by appealing to their national identity as well as their class, and says fascists are socialists with a national identity, and that they demand submission to the state. He backs this up by quoting Mussolini, who said, quote, all is in the state and nothing human that has value exists outside of the state. Sounds like a fallacy, but anyway. YouTuber Mr. Beats describes fascism as, quote, hard to describe in simple terms, yet says others who claim to know what it is often do not know. He cites Fox News, who claims that fascism is two things. One, a tactic employed by the left and their cancel culture, as well as a mobilization of socialists with the added element of national identity. So very similar to what PragerU said. But Beats goes on to call both of those ideas false. Mr. Beats attempts to simplify fascism, boiling it down to, quote, conform or else, but then admitted later that he left something out and said a better definition for that conform or else is a better definition for authoritarianism, and says all authoritarianism is not necessarily fascism. So he adds to the definition by saying conform or else and anything new is a threat. He says the Jacobin movement from the French Revolution and a backlash to the Enlightenment are the roots of fascism. Thomas Carlyle said that absolute rulers are good for society and social Darwinism a positive thing, two ideas that helped Mussolini shape his fascist party. Mr. Beats then points out that early fascists did echo some socialist ideas, calling for things like an 8-hour workday, a progressive tax for the rich, etc. And this kind of changed mid-movement, especially when the Italian black shirts in the early 1900s turned to violence to demand adherence to their movement. He sums it all up by concluding that fascism is the idea that the group is more important than the individual, and that authoritarianism or totalitarianism are useful but not necessary ingredients to fascism. Beats concludes that it tends to be right-wing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be right-wing. And then that, of course, but that last statement does fly in the face of what the Oxford definition, the Oxford and Live Science definitions for fascism are. So I had It
was actually really good. It was really good synopsis. Honestly, I agree with a lot of what was said. I would summarize fascism personally as a reaction to liberal democracy, where liberal democracy tries to give as much agency to individuals. Fascism tries to create agency for the state, and everybody is beholden to the state. And it also uses social Darwinism instead like as part of its economic and social policy. It uses social Darwinism to control its society, and it also uses all apparatuses, even private institutions, to benefit the state and rather like individuals.
Yeah, and I think I'll close off on this, and I agree with what you just said there, and we'll kind of elaborate on that. I did mean to read the Oxford definition earlier, so I apologize for not reading that. Oxford says fascism is an extreme right-wing political system or attitude that is in favor of strong central government, aggressively promoting your own country or race above others, and does not allow for any opposition. They add in general to check out these other terms: Nazism, authoritarianism, autocracy, coercion, and garrison state. So, as well as the term reign of terror. So, as all associated terms with fascism. So, Big Haas, I'd like to start with you. Of the three, I'm sure you agree the most with Dinesh D'Souza. But like what, based on what you just heard and what you know already, two things. What do you think is the clearest definition of what you would call fascism, like how you would identify it, and how it relates to what we're seeing today, especially with guys like Putin?
Well, I think that you're kind of, your decision on that is based by your experience, and the 10-point checklist, kind of lays it out pretty plain. And all of us here know that we've seen examples of that in the last 4.5, 5 years, especially. And those, some of those 10 points make themselves pretty plain in many of Fox News broadcasts, and many coming out of many a politician's mouth in the halls of Congress and elsewhere. So I think that definition is the most clear, and we see the smatterings of it often in today's political arena.
Yeah, and let me real quick leave Haas up there. But here's the funny part about this. I keep hitting fucking Outlook. I'm gonna read these 10 again. And again, these are from Jason Stanley, who is a professor at Harvard. He says the 10 components are: 1, a mythic past; 2, propaganda; 3, anti-intellectualism / anti-science; 4, unreality; 5, hierarchy; 6, victimhood; 7, law and order; 8, sexual anxiety; 9, Sodom and Gomorrah, which is city versus rural; and 10, work shall set you free, hard work. And again, one of those, he says, one of those things by itself does not make someone fascism. And in fact, Stanley says one of those things by itself, or two of those things by themselves, can actually be positives. But it's when I read these, I went through and I looked, I was like, man, every one of those sounds like Trump. So I was like, my first thought was, this has to be bullshit. He had to have written this and just like wrote it after Trump. The video that I watched it on came out in 2017, so it was post-Trump. But then I went back and looked deeper. His first writings on this were in 2011. And it was basically the same thing. That's well before Trump, right? So, do you think that Trump does this shit on purpose and follows these? So, because like there's really no example of anyone maybe other than Mussolini who follows them this closely.
I mean,
Trump did that on purpose, or is it just that he's that stupid? Juan, if you want to go first, by all means.
Yeah, no, I think he definitely knows what he's doing. I don't think I don't think I do think he's an idiot in a lot of ways, but he's very intuitive and he knows what he's doing. Like he knows exactly that he's trying to subvert democracy. That's what he wanted. That's what he's asked people to do consciously and intentionally. It's not a secret. And he actually got pretty close too. I would say we only have a couple election cycles to make any meaningful differences in being able to actually deal with our issues with fascism, or else, democracy in the next few election cycles is going to disappear. We're very close to the edge, in my opinion.
Big Haas, you're back up.
I think that you don't have to be smart necessarily to know what buttons to push to get your way. you don't necessarily have to be book smart or super intelligent to know that if I say this and do this and opine about this, make America great again, blah, 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 it gets certain people going. And we know that those people deal with emotions and not logic. And they'll say fuck your feelings while moving almost exclusively upon their own feelings and emotions. So you don't have to be smart to understand that. I mean, there's many a con man who understands what to say and how to say it to get someone to do something, and they only have a third grade education. You know what I mean? So it's not that he's doing it on purpose, but not from I studied
Mussolini or something.
I studied Mussolini. I'm going to replicate his musings and his patterns. It's just
read that comment.
A baby cries, you feed it. Constance Pendleton. Yep, yeah.
But he did say that Mein Kampf was one of his favorite books. So I mean, he does read fascism. So
I think he made that up. I don't think he read shit.
I think he may have said that just to speak to
I don't think he's also said he never reads, but
that's fair. That's fair. Donald Trump reading is
not too.
Donald Trump reading is a hard thing to imagine. That's true.
Yeah, he typed his book with Snapdragon. So all the ums were in there. But so before we go to Mikey, what is it that like how do you attribute this to what you see with Vladimir Putin right now? And as far as like do you draw any of those same correlations? Do you think Putin is a fascist?
I think Putin is a raging egomaniac and a narcissist. And I think that he has this he has this desire to grab Ukraine back, you know, because he has delusions of grandeur of the old USSR maybe, or, you know, to do this for Mother Russia, or mostly for myself as my legacy. You know what I mean? I don't think that he's necessarily a fascist.
Well, there's the mythic past though.
Right, but exactly. Like, how many of the 10 things does he?
How many of the 10 things can we apply to Putin?
Yeah, so
probably 7 or 8.
Yeah, I think that we're probably on the same page there. The mythic past, yes, we Haas just talked about it.
Yeah,
propaganda. We all know that there's been propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
Anti-intellectualism is the one thing where I'm I'm
not sure about that with him.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. Unreality, 100%. Hierarchy, 1000%. The oligarchy. Victimhood, we're seeing that on massive display right now with Russia's been a victim of NATO. Law and order, maybe we have to be living in Russia to see that, because I just haven't seen it.
I mean, they arrested thousands and thousands of people who are just protesting.
Yeah,
they're jailing journalists. Like,
now law and order on his part, nah.
No, well, they're never subject.
They're above the law. They're above.
No, but Juan, good on you pointing that out, because that was one where I was like, well, I don't live there. How would I know what the law and order is? Sexual anxiety, 100% again. The guy persecutes gays like there's no tomorrow, and Christians for that matter. Sodom and Gomorrah. I can't really say if he really has a city versus rural. I mean,
the rural parts are so sparsely populated, like in Siberia, and most of the population is condensed in like large cities.
Yeah, so I don't know if we can say that one. Work shall set you free. Again, I don't live there, so maybe someone in the chat knows a little bit more on that. But I do want to hear, Mikey, what are your thoughts? We want to hear the great Mikey Famine. What do you think of what you heard about fascism? What does it make you think about in today's context?
I'll answer your question with a question of my own. I just, was thinking of some pop culture references, and you guys can tell me, just like you were trying to figure out if Putin was a fascist. What about the Borg?
That's a good question. So,
I would say there's more totalitarianism.
Yeah, they don't have a mythic past, so I think that they're immediately disqualified.
They have a mythic past. They are all spawned from a D battery from 1987.
In the movie, in the movie, battery's not included. Or The Last Starfighter.
Great movie, by the way. Last Starfighter.
Flight of the Navigator.
Flight of the Navigator. Very good.
Gotcha.
With Mel, wasn't that the name of the robot? Mel. and a very young what was her name from Sex and the City?
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Sarah Jessica Parker. Yeah, very young SJP. Not to be confused with NPH.
Football face girl.
But anyway, your thoughts, Mikey. And
what I got another one for you. How about the Tetragrammaton clerics?
I don't know what that is.
Did you see the movie Equilibrium?
Yes. Now I remember who you're talking about.
The Tetragrammaton.
I think they might be. They're very fascist.
How about
they have a mythic past? It was more trying to erase the past. It seemed to me.
Yeah, they were literally burning the past.
Yeah.
How about everyone in V for Vendetta, except for like 10 people?
Yeah, the V for Vendetta for sure.
Definitely fascist.
And let me throw at you Palpatine.
Palpatine.
100%.
Yeah.
Did anyone see Pan's Labyrinth?
No, I've never seen that actually.
No,
dude, that is literally my favorite movie.
So is Homelander a fascist?
No, I don't think he himself.
He's a titty sucker.
He's not really controlling anything right now. Like he's not in control. He doesn't have any actual power necessarily. Right for now, he's more like the enforcer. If anything.
Yeah, he's the muscle.
Is Omni-Man a fascist?
I mean,
alien.
I would say he's more like it depends. Like to his family, he's more totalitarian or authoritarian than fascist. Like, he doesn't have all the
he's trying to make everything. He wants to make everything just like, what's the name of his home planet? I forget. Starts with a V.
Oh, he's a
Valerian. I was named Valerian Steel. No, that's not right.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Where's Homelander from, or where's Omni-Man from? I forget.
It's
It starts with a V.
Yeah.
Viltrumite.
Viltrumite, right?
Viltrum.
Yeah, but he wants to make everything like that. He's obviously doesn't have any respect for the people who live on Earth. He calls them pets. I think that
his wife a pet.
Called Sandra a pet. It's mad disrespectful.
So here's what I want to know from you, Mikey.
I wasn't done.
As a serial leftist, right?
I'm not a leftist. I don't care about any of this.
I know you don't like being called that, but I'm just giving you a hard time. But what would you say? Do you believe that, like Stalin, who is obviously a communist, do you believe Stalin was a fascist?
Pretty sure he fits all the things. I think we all get caught up on that like mythic one and like, oh, it's not fascist just because of. But I mean, I know their thing was like it doesn't have to have all of them. But I think if you're exhibiting fascist behavior, you might as well be a fascist and you should be treated like one. Like even if you have 4 out of the 10, you should be treated like one. Because I can't like
it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, you can't really. Let me switch this over.
Well, the slippery slope fallacy. But like Stalin, I think, and also Lenin,
there you go,
were interesting in that they see Russia didn't have a thick past, right? Russia's past sucked asshole. So they were more looking towards a catching up. So that would kind of take them out of Stanley's definition. They fit D'Souza's definition better and Beats's definition better. But I still think it's very fair to say that Stalin was a quasi-fascist, at least, if nothing else. Mikey, I'm sorry, I stepped on you. Go ahead.
Yeah, you keep asking me questions and then answering them. Get the fuck out of the way.
That's what I do.
Wayne from the UK, Mr. Wayne Maker, part of the podcast. He sent this to me in my DMs, and it's early warning signs of fascism for all you audio people. It's a little piece of parchment here, a little graphic. Powerful, and let me know if you guys agree with these. In addition,
Yeah, you got to read
most
it
of
in
them are kinda
Wayne's
similar.
in Wayne's voice though.
So actually, I just made fun of Wayne about this earlier today, where I told him every time he pisses me off, I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna repeat exactly what he said, like Mary Poppins, but like as a wish. So I would go for him, but he's gotten enough punishment today. Early warning signs of fascism. First bullet point is powerful and continuing nationalism.
Okay, that falls in
a
line.
Disdain for human rights.
I would push back on that. Human rights for some, but not for all.
Yeah, and they'll have subjective views of what they think are right. So they'll say that what they're doing is the benefit of human rights, and what you're doing is
Right.
Right.
Identification of enemies as a unifying cause.
Yep.
Okay. So supremacy of the military.
Yep.
Rampant sexism.
Yep.
Controlled mass media.
Yep.
Obsession with national security.
Yep.
Religion and government intertwined.
Yeah.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they use religion heavily as a tool for controlling the consent of the general public, because well, most right-wing countries that are fascist are heavily religious, so it's easy for them.
So let's stop on that one for a quick second. So two quick examples of that. Would Iran, which isn't really, to be fair, Iran isn't quite as theocratic as we think it is upon further review, but they're still pretty theocratic. Or the Vatican, would that then put them under this umbrella?
I mean, they would be like an excitation of like one of the components, but they wouldn't be like they wouldn't exhibit like the aggregate, like how you were saying, to be fascist necessarily.
Okay, continue on.
Corporate power protected.
Woo! That's one we haven't talked about at all.
I'll read it again. Corporate power protected.
If you can include the government as a corporation, yes.
Yeah, the fascist society would make it so all corporate institutions are functionally serving the state. They don't want any kind of private autonomy. They want state autonomy. So at that sense, like corporations would mostly be either quasi apparatus of the state or actual apparatus of the state. It wouldn't be like private institutions anymore, in my opinion.
Now, it sounds like you're describing communism there.
Well, I mean, not necessarily. Like it depends on if you use a Soviet definition, perhaps. But
well, they weren't. The Soviets weren't communists in any real sense.
Well, not in any academic sense, but yeah.
They called themselves communists, but I got news for you. They weren't really a communist state. But anyway, what's the next one there, Mikey?
Labor power suppressed.
Anti-union, basically.
Yeah, I would probably say that's fair.
Yeah.
Disdain for intellectuals and the arts.
Yes, unless it benefits them.
Obsession with crime and punishment.
Yeah.
Law and order.
Yeah.
Rampant cronyism and corruption.
I think that's true of every society, but yeah.
Let me zoom in on this one. Let me zoom in on this one. Fraudulent elections.
Oh, you don't say.
Don't say.
Don't you know?
That's usually the casus belli for the coup. So,
so
that's a good one. So it's like, I don't know. Like, and that's the thing. Like, this is one dig where I can honestly say, like, you kind of have to look at the body of work and like, and say, and kind of read because I'll be honest, I don't agree with the Yale professor on this. I think that if someone has 6 or 7 of those components, but maybe has 1 or 2 components that Mikey brought up, that he didn't bring up that fits that puzzle. But maybe he could find a way to marry those. I don't know. But like it seems that there's so much ambiguity with this as far as, but I think that it's probably mostly a right-wing thing, but I will say that I don't believe it has to be right-wing in the purest sense. But I also think that it's got to be authoritarian. It's got to be us against them. It's got to be there has to be a mythic past. There has to be a sense of uber nationalism, and there has to be a sense of hierarchy where, only we can save you and you just work hard and that's your value. Like,
I would say that in the leftist propaganda, even though the Soviet Union wasn't communist, they would say a lot of communist type of messaging, which is antithetical to that kind of perspective. So
it's a good point.
Like they're authoritarian, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they were fascist. Exactly.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that shitty is shitty. Right. And that's like, so here's what I want to ask. So like, Mikey, if you were in charge of the United States, would any of these, no, serious question here. Would any of the list of Wayne's list, or the list of Stanley, or the list of Dinesh D'Souza, Mr. Beats didn't really give a list. He sort of analyzed other lists. Would any of those components be employed by a Mikey Famine run government with a humanist perspective? Because I think fascism is antithetical to humanism. That's for sure. But could any of those ingredients help push humanism?
Well, first of all, I want to say, first thing I'm doing is kicking Dinesh D'Souza out. He's gone.
Of the country, or like
he snapped.
He's going. You know what? He's been conveniently relocated to Alaska, which we're selling back to Russia.
No, Siberia. Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Antarctica.
We're gonna sell them. We're just gonna sell that back to them, and they can keep Dinesh free of charge. Also, it is mandatory for everybody to eat tacos at least 5 times a week.
God damn.
I'm not budging on that. I think it's good food, and I think it's good for the people.
How about pizza instead?
But then there's the crust fights, and people I like thin. Chicago deep dishes lasagna bread. Like we create all these potholes in the lane of conversation.
Yeah, but okay, so here's the thing though. You have to keep one of them, because the autocracy, which you're not able to get rid of, says, you know what? You either got to keep Larry Elder, Candace Owens, or the Hodge twins. Mikey, which are you keeping?
Oh, they're all going. And whoever told me that I have a limit, they're gone too.
So you're an authoritarian.
Whoever told me I got to keep one has got to go too.
Vladimir Famine over here.
Oh no, it's Mikey Famine the Inquisitor. Hold on, where's my tag at? There we go. Yeah, the first person to put limits on my power is the first one gone. That's obvious. I mean, Putin does it, so obviously I should do it.
Yeah, we can't all be on the screen when that tag is up, though. You have to be by yourself.
No, I want to put it over your face. Pause.
For those who don't know, Mikey does run this podcast in a very fascist way.
You're right.
Only against you.
Correct.
Because I am the other.
Gotta do that.
I don't have no problems with Haas. Haas just conforms and he marches to the step of his own drum, and then our steps match up because we both black and we got rhythm. So we don't ever be out of step.
It's you, Dutch.
Joe can't do the electric slide at Wedding's ass. It's you that's the problem.
Right.
So no, it's fine.
That's right. Unless I conform and work hard.
But what was the question about? I got very distracted when I found out that I was the leader of.
If you ruled the United States, would you have any components of being fascist from the professor's definition, or the 10 components?
I mean, but
these
I think
15, these 10.
There is some validity to some of them by themselves, but I don't know that those should necessarily go into the fascist category at all, but like pride in your country, I don't think that alone is fascist, but it's when all the things are together. So that one I think is completely benign, and as long as you're not creating others and the xenophobia kicks in, then there's no reason,
Right.
like, because I don't think anyone says the Olympics, the biggest xenophobia event around the world. Like, no one thinks of it that way because everyone's cool with being patriots for their own country. You know what I mean? Everyone likes to root for their own country. So pride in your country shouldn't be a problem. But as soon as you say
It's okay to have pride in your country, but don't have pride in your country. Like when you're driving around and you got 3 American flags on your Ford F-150, you're doing a little too much. You know what I mean? If you've got America, love it or leave it, on a bumper sticker, you might be doing so much. You know?
Yeah, but isn't it funny that they say don't criticize America while criticizing everything that the Democrats do, which last I checked is part of America.
Right. But they're not really Americans.
Exactly.
They're
I
trying
was
to
gonna say
destroy
that they're
America.
not right. They're not
They're
really
real Americans. They're lizard baby eating people that trying to destroy America and terraform it back to the planet Xemorth.
So they can live off adrenochrome forever.
Right. And they're gonna live off of, they're gonna liquefy stem cells.
Hold on, I need a sip.
Oh,
I got my adrenochrome.
I thought you were gonna like write it down. Like, I'm trying to get this recipe. Hold on. What?
They out there like the butterflies in
Peacemaker.
The Democrats actually go home and stick their long snouts into.
I need 14 juvenile butterflies who've never tasted the love, had the pleasure of love of another. And that's the funny part is I will say I think Putin. Let me get myself. There we go. Here I am. Hello.
Self-aggrandizer.
But I'm a fascist. Okay.
See?
So I think Putin is absolutely a fascist. Now I think that we went down that list, and I think we were, of the 10, I think that we were probably 80% for sure that we could say, or 70% for sure that we could say Putin exhibited those characteristics, and maybe 1 or 2 that aren't. That's why I say I disagree with Stanley. But even if we had to stick to the list that Mikey read, or the list that Stanley gave us, and we had to stick to all those criteria, missing 1 or 2 does not suddenly make you Mother Teresa, right?
Right.
There's that is sort of a fallacy of extremes on its own. Like, you can't, it's a this or that fallacy, right? And that's
called the false dichotomy.
But to a degree, but in another way, it's like, well, it's still not something that is positive. For me, a leader should be someone who is trying to foster the growth and development of those who he is leading, and fostering a positive environment in which for them to gain equity and to have a voice, right? While at the same time doing some things that may be fascist. Like, I don't see a problem with having a strong military to defend your borders, right? But we don't need to be 66 times stronger than the next strongest country. That at some point, those funds could be used better elsewhere. And if you're not antagonizing the rest of the world, fighting proxy wars and trying to set up democracies that, by the way, never have an electoral college, then what the rest of the world is probably not going to want to come after you unless you have like vibranium or something. So it's like I think that the bottom line is that if you're a piece of shit, it doesn't matter if you're a left-wing piece of shit or a right-wing piece of shit. All these folks I know who are Leninist communists, I know a lot of folks who claim to be Leninist communists. And I think that I probably agree on 80% of stuff with Leninist communists, maybe 90. But here's an idea.
Heard it here
Why don't
first.
you
Dutch
not?
is a Leninist
Why don't
communist.
you? What's that?
Said you
What-
heard it here
what- what do
first.
you-
Dutch is a Leninist communist.
Well, like, what don't you agree with the Leninist Marxist, and what do you agree with?
Well, the main thing is Leninist was an authoritarian as well, right? Like he was born under the czars. The czars kicked him out of Europe, out of Russia, and sent him over to Europe, where he did a lot of. He was trying to start a revolution that would kill people. Like he was actively promoting a revolution within Russia where other people would die and not him. And then he was brought back, but the Germans sent him back on purpose to antagonize, because he was an antagonizer. And then when he got into power, he fucking killed a shit ton of people, right? And but the czars did too. Like the czars shot down. There was a very famous protest. I think it was what Bloody Sunday is named after. If I could be wrong on this, but there was a very famous protest where a priest and like dozens of other people walked calmly to the czars to hand them a petition, and all they did is say, "We'd like to hand this petition to the czars." They fucking gunned them all down. They must have had a BLM flag or something.
Mhm.
It's like but like
They
so no,
They had-
things in Chechnya too.
They had some drugs in their system, so there.
yeah, they were bringing. They weren't
crack on
sending
them,
their
get them out of
best.
here.
They weren't sending their best. They were sending drugs, sending rapists.
Mhm.
But like
some of them were fine people, but they got caught up.
I
in that.
some of
I
them,
assume and some of them I assume are good people.
I assume we were fine people.
some were absolutely fine people. But it's like I don't. I think that this is a problem that we have with the Democratic Party. Defund the police and Medicare for all are bad fucking names, right? Like let's call our movement something better than that.
It's the worst.
Let's not pick Leninist communists, right? Like just because I think Marx had it mostly right, I'm with Marx. Like I there's very little that Marx wrote that I think is completely off the wall, right?
But I think it's that, like, unfortunately, what Marx wrote, I think, in my opinion, is no longer applicable, unfortunately, to modern way capitalism has formed after, like, the neoliberal order. The post Reagan, it's very different. Like Marx would have assumed capitalism would have fell by now, but
Yeah.
it's found a way to morph itself and transform in ways that I don't think he ever even predicted.
Well, his theory wasn't perfect, and like you can never achieve complete equality. Like even if every single one of us in America had the exact same size house, somebody's going to be closer to the corner store.
Well, I don't think anyone really is arguing necessarily for complete equality. Like I'm fine with there being people who want more and work harder to get more. That's perfectly understandable. That's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. I think everybody just wants a baseline that says that
Right.
there's no suffering and no suffering exists and you don't have to prove yourself to not suffer. Like everybody just because you're born, you have a prosperous life because you're a human being. That's the baseline. And if you want more and you want to work hard for more, go do you if that's what you want.
I think that's a perfectly fine way to put it. I mean, I think that I don't think Marx would have specifically agreed with that per se, because Marx didn't really. I don't recall Marx having room in his philosophies for people who didn't contribute to society, at least on purpose. But I think that like anybody who, whether it's Mao or Lenin or Castro, anybody who fucking murders people in the streets, and Putin is included in this as well. And really, honestly, a lot of American presidents are included in this as well.
Mm-hmm. Every post-World War II president, if they were judged in the Geneva Conventions, they wouldn't pass. Like they wouldn't necessarily be hanged necessarily. Not all of them, depending on the crime, but they wouldn't have passed the
bless you.
Nuremberg trial. Sorry, if they were held to the standards of the Nuremberg trial, they wouldn't have passed.
All right. Well, there we go. Anyone want to make a closing comment? I have a feeling one of you would like to make a closing comment on this
They have high
fascism.
football rules.
Yeah.
All right. So
honestly,
yeah, Juan, go ahead and give us a closing comment on this whole topic.
Yeah, I would just say that fascism in the United States is a big threat. We're very close to being a fascist country very recently. Donald Trump had all the mechanisms necessary if everything worked as he wanted to steal the election. I mean, there was just a very few number of Republicans and Pence that stood in front of Donald Trump, basically overthrowing the election and staying as president. And there's still mechanisms that he can use now to overcome that. If they win the House, and if they win the Senate, it's pretty much over. So fascism is a very real threat in our society. We have maybe like a couple more election cycles before we start becoming a fascist state if we do nothing about that issue. And if it's not a foreign threat like Putin, I would say, is a fascist, but we have a lot more real domestic threat of fascism here in our home.
Yeah, I do want to give a shout out to Pence because he didn't bend on that one.
Yeah, it was probably one of the primary reasons why the plan completely fell apart. So,
well, credit where credit's due, I suppose, but not
Sun
much.
shines on a dog's ass every once in a while too.
I want to give Big Haas, before we go to the last topic of the day, I want to give Big Haas this just real quick. Big Haas, Ketanji Brown Jackson, she's not qualified because
she's black.
Because Biden only selected from 6% of the population.
Oh yeah.
So she can't be qualified because there had to be someone more qualified than her. Your response?
Fuck out of here. Have you seen the laundry list of her qualifications? I can't even do it from memory. It's so long. She graduated summa cum laude from Harvard, I want to say. She clerked for...
Wait, she's not an alpha, is she?
She might be an AKA, which is our sisters.
I'm on it.
If she is, I say we can't have her in.
That's
just based.
You know what? Now I have to fucking Google it. I want to know now.
I'm on it.
Yeah, Mikey's doing it. But go
Find
ahead
out
and give
if
us
she's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. I doubt it, because if she was, they would be all over it. I know them ladies, the wonderful ladies.
She was involved in a hazing event in 1989. But yeah, give us Mikey's looking it up. Give us rebut that statement that I made, which obviously was sarcastic. But
all right,
with
let me real quick.
I'm searching it. Are you looking for, or what's it called?
I'm looking up her qualifications real quick.
Oh, okay.
Female, black,
no,
American citizen. There you go. They just picked anybody.
She was. She's currently a federal appeals court judge.
By the way, she was endorsed by, I believe it was the Fraternal Order of Police.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
She's currently a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. Served 8 years as a federal district circuit court judge in Washington, D.C. That is, well, okay. We all know that Trump appointed people who had never even tried a trial, let alone sat on a federal district court.
Yeah, real quick, comparing her record to Amy Coney Barrett's record,
exactly,
is you don't even have a conversation anymore, because, and this is not a personal slam on Amy Coney Barrett, but she had been a judge for 9 months.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let me see here. So She, damn it. God damn. I always, okay.
Was
Won't
she
give
hanging
me
out
a-
with Snee at all?
With who?
An amazing
With Snee, with
pick.
Kavanaugh? Snee, my buddy Snee.
Squee.
Squee, yeah.
Now, one person I wish Joe Biden picked for the Supreme Court, who would be an amazing pick, would be Lawrence Lasig. He's not a judge; he's more like he used to be a lawyer. But
Okay.
I think he would be an amazing Supreme Court pick.
It says here is Ketanji Brown Jackson, and AKA Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority. Congratulates Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson on her historic nomination to the Supreme Court of the United States. But it doesn't say that she is.
No, I don't think so.
Is Alpha.
I don't think she is. If she's
Or
if
Delta?
she was AKA, they would.
Okay,
They
then
would be
she
doing-
officially gets the endorsement of Dig on America podcast.
Yeah.
She did it.
Yeah, she made it. If she had been an AKA, we would
No.
be staunchly. We would. Mikey
Why
and I
you
would.
hate that? Just puts her over the top because
No, it
you
puts
know.
her under the top.
being an AKA is a serious matter.
You
they
alphas
say.
and all your shenanigans and all your people.
I didn't say that. Those are the words of Dutch and only Dutch. Where the
Right.
disclaimer
And
at?
Mikey, the last 11 podcasts.
Nope. I don't want no smoke with the Greeks. Y'all good?
What a change of heart.
No.
That's exactly
Somebody-
right.
Did somebody
Oh.
visit him? Haas, did somebody visit him last week?
Hey,
Nah, man. It's the same red, it's the same black and gold car keep following me around. I got the message.
right.
The helicopter.
All these people walking around
They
black
got-
and gold
they got
shirts.
Spartan warriors following him.
That's what I'm saying. These dudes with swords out.
Haas, you're
front of the
taking an
house.
extraordinary amount of time to find her qualifications. So the right wing must be right. She must not have any.
All right, I got you. So she clerked for Honorable Patty Saris. She clerked for the Honorable Bruce Marshall Celia, both judges on one on the district court in the District of Massachusetts, the other one in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit. She law clerked. Oh wow, I did not know that. She law clerked for Stephen Breyer, Supreme Court of the United States. And then she worked in the private sector as a lawyer for Goodwin Procter and the Feinberg Group, special counsel for the United States Sentencing Commission, assistant federal public defender for the Office of Federal Public Defenders. She was counsel with Morrison and Forrester law practice, vice chair and commissioner of the United States Sentencing Commission. As I said before, a judge for the District of Columbia, U.S. Court of Appeals. She's the Constance Baker Motley Award winner, empowering women of color from Columbia Law School. Distinguished visiting jurist, third annual Judge James B. Parsons Legacy Award, Black Law Students Association, University of Chicago Law School. Stars of the Bar Award, Women's Bar Association of the District of Columbia. And the list goes on and on and on.
She's honestly, she's a lot better than what Trump would have picked. So,
yeah,
unfortunate Trump didn't win the election.
This is the manager from the McDonald's down the road. I think he should go up there.
But Trump's next SCOTUS pick would have been like, "Do you want fries with that appeal?"
Would you
Yeah,
like to
they would have
supersize
a
your
super
judgment?
majority, and then the Supreme Court would have been horrible.
Do you think? So here's the criticism that I have heard a lot. Biden should have just done it and not announced it. Referring to, I'm going to put the first ever black woman on the Supreme Court.
So he's saying Biden should have done what a lot of racist white folks do, just do it and not announce it, but it's obvious to everybody.
Yeah, but they're saying that he could have put whoever he wants on there, but not have narrowed down the demographics from which he was going to pick. And then no one would have a problem with it.
He could have said, "I'm going to pick the best candidate," And then as he's walking away from the podium and the mic clears, black candidate. That's
Right. So here's the way that I look at this.
How do you look at this?
One thing that we know for sure, and this is not me saying this is one thing that we know without any question, and this is somewhat true of Hispanic women as well, but we're focusing on black women at this point. For a black woman to be in the position that she was in, she has to be overqualified to begin with.
Right.
Because had she not been overqualified,
she would have been in
she
that
would
position.
not have been where she was prior to this.
Right.
Because we saw what happened. And again, this is not an ad hominem attack on Amy Coney Barrett. I have a lot of fundamental differences with her, but she clearly did not have the resume that really anyone else on the Supreme Court has. But she got to the place where she got despite the fact not having the resume. Right?
Mm-hmm.
With Judge Jackson,
Sergeant Jackson,
Judge Joe Brown, Judge Jackson, just all of, and this is true of all three of the women on the short list, they all had to be immensely overqualified. Otherwise, they wouldn't have even been in the conversation, because you cannot put a black woman with Amy Coney Barrett's resume
anywhere
in this
near
position.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they would not have gotten to the position where Amy Coney Barrett was in the first place, did they not have it. And that's a sad thing to say about our society.
Yeah.
It's just like imagine Barack Hussein Obama having the same track record in history in business and personal life that Donald Trump has.
Or George W. Bush.
Does he get anywhere near the primary ticket with that background?
No, like the Donald Trump with like the scandals that he had. If Obama had that, like they created a scandal over Obama's brown suit. Imagine if he had half
the tan
thing
suit.
Trump. Oh, sorry.
Who his pastor was.
Right. Imagine if he had
Christian
half
enough.
the scandals that Trump had. Like he would have been destroyed.
Yeah, Trump has 8 people in his inner circle now in jail, but we didn't like Obama's pastor.
Stormy Daniels, like you know what I mean? Who happened to like family values, right?
Well, I'm not shaming. Stormy Daniels is a career woman as far as I'm concerned, but
she was doing her job.
Yeah. Watching Shark Week, but all right. So, there we go. So there's the podcast for the day. We do have one more segment. So here's what I'm going to do from now on, guys. So that's the end of the normal show. This is all you will see on YouTube. The rest of the show will be on Patreon only. So, Juan, you're free to stick around for this if you like. We're going to have a cigar review. I know it's late. You're in Florida. So thank you for coming on, folks. If you are interested in checking out Juan's campaign, Juan, one more time, if you would tell them how to find you.
Yeah, so you can find me everywhere with Juan 4 Congress. Even my website is Juan4Congress.com. So everywhere on social media where I exist, there's going to be Juan 4 Congress.
And including Parler and Truth Social, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I'm creating my Parler account right now as we speak, actually.
Perfect. All right. So, Juan, you're welcome to hang with us if you want to. We'll do our cigar review. We're going to talk a little football. You guys will be able to see this right now, but you won't be able to see it tomorrow because this is going to be Patreon only for anybody later. So, with that being said, we'll see you motherfuckers next time on Dig on America. Okay. So, Big Haas, Juan, if you can't hang around with us, you're free to just exit out, and we appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, Dutch, can I end the show?